So 3 years ago, 2019, I was only 27. I made the biggest pivot of my career and one of the biggest pivots, honestly, of my life. At the time, I was married, had a 1-year-old daughter, and we were soon to be expecting another child. So this was a pivot that wasn't going to just affect myself. This was a pivot that was going to affect my entire family. This was something that was in the works for probably 2 years of just thinking through how this was going to be possible, thinking how I was even just going to broach the topic with my wife and get her on board with this. I'll let it be known, for several months, I would say the majority of a year, anytime I brought up this conversation with my wife of wanting to quit my job and start my own business, she would almost cry every single time I brought it up. She would cry. It was such a big deal for her to imagine that her husband was going to quit his job and pursue his own thing in filmmaking. Just totally freaked her out. But this was the big pivot that I wanted to make for a whole bunch of reasons. But there were really some important reasons. One, I wanted to be at home, or I wanted to be with my family more often. Having a young family, those early years with my kids, I knew were going to be extremely pivotal. I wanted to be a father figure for them. I wanted to be in their life. I didn't want to be stuck in an office for 9-10 hours a day and then only see them for 1 or 2 hours when I got home. I wanted to just be more available when I wasn't working on projects, to be able to take them to the park or go on walks or play in the backyard, things like that. That was really important to me. And then secondly, I wanted to be able to give my wife the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom if she wanted to be. If she didn't want to be, that's fine. She's a nurse. She could go work if she wanted to do that. But I wanted to at least just give her the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom, which meant in this pivot, I was going to have to go from making $50,000 at my job to equaling what both she and I made, which was closer to about $90,000. I was going to have to make $90,000 for our entire family to really make this pivot work and for me to be able to do the things that I wanted to do. To make this truly what I hoped for and what I desired, and really everything, all the dreams and plans that I was laying out for my wife, I was going to have to 2x my income to really make this possible. To be honest, to make a big pivot in your career, it's going to take at least 1 year of really putting in a lot of time and effort, preparing yourself for the moment where you leave a job or you change what you're doing and turn and go in a different direction. It's going to take a lot of preparation. So you might ask, what was the preparation? What kind of preparation was I doing? Well, one, I was making sure that I was building the right relationships. I was making sure that I was connecting with the right people. I was attentive and aware to what they needed. I was listening to them. I was trying to understand, how I could build off of that relationship in the future whenever I left my job. How could I potentially work with them? What kind of services would they be up for? Could I get a contract with them? Those kind of things. That's the prep work. When I look back to that pivot and what carried me through that moment to where I am now 3 years from now, what was most successful is the relationships that I built. And relationships just take time. That's the thing, is that you can't meet somebody, build a really good relationship in just 1 month's time and expect to make your pivot with that relationship. Good, solid relationships that are going to lead to good contracts and good clients are going to take, honestly, probably a minimum of 1 year to build that out. So that's why I said the preparation takes, for me at least, a year. It took longer than that. It probably took more like 18 to 24 months for me to do the prep work. But relationships just take time. And you need to build those strong relationships for your pivot to actually work. Secondly, me being in the creative space, being in filmmaking and photography, I needed to have a strong portfolio so that whenever I built those relationships, I could show people evidence of my work. If you've built up really strong relationships, but you don't have a strong portfolio, it's going to be very difficult to convince them that they should hire you. So you need to make sure before that pivot happens that you're working as hard as you can where you are to build up that portfolio. And if you don't have those opportunities in your current job, then you need to make sure that you're finding those opportunities nights, weekends, wherever you can fill that in. Make sure you're building up your portfolio if you're in the creative space doing that prep work, working really, really hard. Like, what do I want my portfolio to look like when I make that pivot in a year from now or 6 months from now? Like, what do I want that to look like? You need to be focused on that. And then third, remember, I had to 2x my income to really make this a viable venture, a viable opportunity for myself and my family. So in order to 2x my income, I really had to sit down and crunch a lot of numbers. I had to understand, where was the money going to come from? How many clients did I need, and at what minimum price did I need to have in order for this to work? So did I need 5 clients at $2,000 a month? Or did I need 3 clients at $3,500 a month? Or did I need 10 clients at $1,000 a month? What was it going to take in order for me to make that income viable? And then break that down into, if I need 10 clients, how many relationships have I built in order to facilitate that? Do I have 10 strong relationships that I know that I can lean on that are going to provide that income every single month? Have I built up 20 relationships in case 10 of those relationships don't work, but 10 of those do stick and do work? Is that going to happen? Should I maybe secure myself by building up 30 relationships with people to make sure that I can get 10 of those to stick and have business with 10 of those people? Those are the kinds of things you need to be sitting down and thinking through, especially from the money perspective. I know a lot of times we can get obsessed with, maybe if you're like me, you can get obsessed with crunching the numbers. You can get obsessed with kind of planning how many clients and how much income I need, those kinds of things. But the reality is, if you don't go back to the beginning and work on building those relationships, it's going to be impossible to make the money. If you do all these things, do the prep work really, really hard for 1 to 2 years to prepare for that pivot, you can absolutely make that pivot happen. Again, I'm 3 years removed from that pivot. I did 2x my income within that first year. I've kind of 3x my income since that moment, and have made for myself a much more enjoyable career. I've been with my family more. I've been in my kids' lives. So I've done all the things that I wanted to do now, 3 years having gone through that pivot, 3 years removed from that pivot moment. You can do it, but you got to build those strong relationships. You can do it, but you got to build a strong portfolio. You can do it, but you got to work on the numbers and understand how the numbers have to play out to make it happen. So can you make a big pivot in your career? Yes, absolutely. But it's going to take at least, I think, 1 year of good, solid prep work, maybe 2 years. You got to do the work now and then reap the rewards further down the line. It's not going to be instant. It's not going to be in a few months. It's probably going to be 12 to 24 months before anything really materializes. But if you dream for a pivot, if you work for a pivot, if you see the pivot and want to make the pivot and do the work for the pivot will happen. And it'll be one of the best moments and one of the best changes in your career and your life. I know it has been for me. 3 years removed, I am so incredibly grateful that I made that pivot happen.